Thank you very much, Golda. Thank you, Roba, for the presentation, and I'm very happy to be here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much for having me here on this morning to share the experience of IGAD region in responding to COVID-19. I also wanted to thank the ISS and for organizing this webinar, in which has drawn participants from all over the world. A warm welcome everyone that is viewing us online. I'm honored that you have taken time to come and listen as we share our experience in responding to the effects of the coronavirus pandemic in the IGAD region. At the same time, I hope that in our subsequent discussions, we will also have opportunity to hear from you on what works and what doesn't when it comes to COVID-19 response now and in the future. The guiding question here for this webinar this morning is, can the Horn deal with the impact of COVID-19? The more I have examined this question, the clearer it has become that yes, COVID-19 is an international crisis, but the effects of it are principally experienced at the personal level. Failing sick in a personal experience, losing a job is a personal experience, sleeping hungry is a personal experience, and migrating to escape economic uncertainty and social unrest is personal experience. In the IGAD region, the COVID-19 pandemic is an opportunistic infection that is exploiting pre-existing vulnerabilities. Just like the other viruses that capitalize on low level of immunity, COVID-19 will take advantage of existing challenges to human security in order to further destabilize the IGAD region. When considered in tandem with the other stimuluses, simultaneous threats that IGAD region is facing, COVID-19 presents the existential threat to peace and security in the Horn of Africa, in fact, to the Africa and to some part of the world, as well as the world. Specifically, the COVID-19 pandemic in the Horn of Africa region should be viewed through the IGAD, in our view, 3+2+1 regional response strategy framework. We see it as a crisis within a crisis within a crisis. 3 represents two triple threats that coronavirus or COVID-19 pose to health, food security, and peace security within the IGAD region. 2 signifies that the desert locust invasion, that we call it locust 20, and widespread flooding. And 1 symbolizes that unprecedented wave of refugees and undocumented migrants that is anticipated as a result of the socio-economic challenges that are expected to follow closely on the heels of the pandemic. So COVID-19, therefore, not just a health crisis, but a comprehensive crisis. In addition to the threats it poses to the physical well-being of our population in the Horn of Africa, it is also affecting all aspects of life in the IGAD region and around the world. COVID-19 continues to wreak havoc on the health and wealth of nations and households all over the world. In 133 days since it was declared a pandemic, it has affected over 7.2 million people and killed over 406,000 people. 3 weeks ago, when I received the invitation to speak at this webinar, the IGAD region had recorded 7,466 cases and 213 deaths. In the intervening 20 days, which I'm doing now, This number has risen threefold to over 20,667 cases in infection and 605 deaths. Let us put it in this perspective. The average death rate over the 6 years and 1 day that the Second World War lasted was 243 people per day. The average death rate from the coronavirus since the beginning of February is 3,059 people per day. In other words, COVID-19 is statistically 13 times more deadly than the Second World War. In economic terms, the University of Norwich estimates that adjusted for inflation in today's money, the Second World War cost $4 trillion. The Asian Development Bank, on its part, recently estimated that COVID-19 will cost the global economy $8.8 trillion. This is twice as much as the cost of the Second World War. If we factor the cost of the collapse in social order and reversals in the multilateralism that may be triggered by COVID-19, this cost becomes astronomical, if not incalculable. COVID-19 therefore has far-reaching implications on the global security agenda. My detailed update this morning will illustrate how preserves the impact of COVID-19 has been in all aspects in life of the IGAD region, ranging from health, food insecurity, peace and security, economic development, livelihoods and social welfare, as well as the environment and natural resource management. I can say without fear of contradiction that COVID-19 poses one of the greatest threats to the well-being of humanity. In medical practice, it is normal to first examine the patient before diagnose the disease, and coming up with prognosis before we can tell if the horn can deal with the impact of COVID-19. We must understand the state of the horn and some of the factors informing peace and security that are most likely to be affected. Let us look at some of the main aspects of peace and security in the IGAD region that are likely to be affected by COVID-19. First, the economy, unemployment, and youth bulge. Across the region, the pandemic has critically reduced levels of activity in vital economic sectors such as agriculture, service sectors such as tourism, transport, and logistics. Universally, small and medium enterprises are the most affected, with over 2/3 of them reducing staff members. In addition, countries such as Sudan are operating under international sanctions, which have had a negative effect on the economy. Sudan is currently experiencing an economic crisis with over 70% of inflation. South Sudan has seen the value of oil reduce significantly, effectively affecting government revenues. Considering that of over 95% of the people in the IGAD region are below the age of 65, and the average median age is 18 years, the loss of income and livelihood is significantly affecting the youth. Let us bear in mind that even though the youth are more resistant to the health effects of COVID-19, young people, especially in the informal urban settlement, are the most vulnerable to the economic and social effects of this pandemic. From peace and security perspective, this is a significant threat to peace and security, considering that in conflict situations, the majority of combatants are young people. The second, geopolitics. At the global level, the Horn of Africa is the theater of significant geostrategic importance and substantial international interest. It sites on the major maritime trade and transportation route, acting as a gateway between Europe and Asia, as you know very well, and the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea. In 2013, the World Bank estimated that piracy costs the global economy $18 billion a year. As livelihood shrink, the IGAD region expects a resurgence of piracy to exploit high geostrategic value of the maritime routes adjacent to the region. The third one is internal tensions. Internally, the IGAD region is geographically homogeneous, but politically and socially it is heterogeneous. It is the melting point of nationalities, ideologies, religions, culture, and communalities. Whilst this diversity stimulates cooperation at the policy level and brings the region together, these same differences are in cause of tension at the community level that drive the region apart. Traditionally, the Horn of Africa has high level of intercommunal conflict over natural resources. This has been made worse by the abundance of illicit small arms and light weapons. In addition, violent extremists such as Al-Shabaab are active in the region, controlling the large section of territory, recurrent unemployed and marginalized users to their ranks. The fourth one is governance and election processes. The pandemic has also had an effect on the electoral calendar of the region. Ethiopia indefinitely postponed parliamentary elections that had been scheduled for August 2020, sparking uncertainty and heated debate within the country. In Kenya, the partial lockdown temporarily reduced the momentum of effort to drum up support for handshake and building bridge initiatives. In Somalia, there are concerns that parliamentary elections scheduled for November 2020 may be postponed. On its part, Uganda is at the crossroads with some indications that election scheduled for March 2021 may be postponed. The fifth one is territorial disputes. The IGAD region has also over 7 major unresolved territorial disputes, most of which are rooted in access to the natural resource and have the latent potential to transform into active interstate conflicts. This includes a disagreement over the use of the Nile water between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, active dispute over a BA region between Sudan and South Sudan, and the maritime boundary dispute between Kenya and Somalia, latent dispute including Migingo Island between Kenya and Uganda, dispute over Djibouti-Eritrea border, and Ilmi Triangle between South Sudan and Kenya. This issues of Somaliland, the issue of Somaliland continues to remain sensitive, untouchable, but potentially a threat for the region. The sixth one is mediation, prevention, diplomacy, peacekeeping, and peace-building process that is affected. COVID-related movement restrictions have shown down planned diplomatic efforts at peace-building. For instance, the normalization of relations between Djibouti and Eritrea. Travel restriction also prevented the holding of tripartite meeting between Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya in March 2020. In the Kenya-Somalia maritime dispute, COVID-19 has curtailed peacekeeping operations as well as a peace-building process significantly. Somalia, for instance, has recorded the highest level of conflict and violence in the region. Al-Shabaab has taken the opportunity to actively exploit the pandemic in order to gain influence, create tension, and expand territories. So we can see that there are a lot of explosions, including the killing of the governor of Nogun region. Furthermore, ongoing dialogue between the federal government and federal member states is also at the stake, not finished. So this is also another potential area that IGAD is dealing and not yet finished. In addition, there are a lot of incidents in South Sudan. The South Sudan peace process, the formation of the transitional government is a success for IGAD region for sure, but this is also unfinished business. We have not yet finalized, the government has not yet finalized the appointment of the states, and as well as there is communal conflict in different areas. The other one is irregular migration. That is also another challenge that we are facing. So these are most of the things that we are dealing with in this IGAD region. IGAD, for example, to combat these things, pioneered models of unified responses to this threat that address the world can replicate and improve upon. We quickly recognize that unconnected, contrary specific measures would be ineffective at combating the virus. Instead, we adopted a regional approach to brought our member states to work together in a coordinated and connected manner. As I come to the end of my address, allow me to share with you 5 critical measures that will significantly shore up peace and security in the whole region in the context of coronavirus. 1, expanding support for regional peace-building initiatives, that is South Sudan, Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, Kenya, and Sudan. 2 is the point that I mentioned earlier, preventive diplomacy, peace-building process. The 3rd one is supporting measures that prevent and contain the peacekeeping forces. And the other one is debt cancellation that echoed by the leaders of the region as well as the African leaders. So the other one is getting this opportunity, accelerating the regional integration agenda, because COVID is not a country-based pandemic, because it is international, it needs international response. So the issue of integration comes to light at this point. So the integration agenda is one of the most important things that we should pull. To conclude, overall peace and security situation in the IGAD region hangs in the balance. It could deteriorate rapidly or improve tremendously. On the one hand, if we do not respond in sustained and coordinated manner to triple threats that I have mentioned, we shall have increased food security, reduced incomes, and destroyed livelihood, thereby undermining peace and security and stability. On the other hand, if we take advantage of this situation to catalyze positive transformation, we shall improve the peace and security situation in the region. History has taught us that the ash of every disaster lies the seeds of improving human condition. For example, the city of London owes its sewerage system to the cholera outbreak of 1854. The 1918 flu pandemic popularized the use of face masks and social distancing. The First World War gave rise to the League of Nations, the forerunner of the United Nations, while the Second World War gave us the international cooperation, peace and security system we now today through the United Nations and post-conflict reconstruction institutions such as the World Bank. So we can see opportunities in the time of this very critical, challenging situation. Let us not waste the crisis, but instead harness the opportunities it gives us to rebuild a better and more peaceful world. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Your